Welcome. In last video on inflation, we have learned what is inflation and what causes inflation. Now in this video, we are going to know whether inflation is good or bad for the economy as a whole. So first we'll basically divide into three cases. First case will be where there is no inflation or deflation. There is negative inflation or no inflation. Second case is normal low inflation, and third case is high inflation. So we are dividing our study into three cases. Basically we have this inflation on top, which is measured in percentage, that is overall percentage price rise, and this inflation we are dividing into three parts: low inflation, high inflation, and negative inflation or deflation or no inflation. So what happens in each of these parts we will see. So first we will see what happens when there is no inflation. When there is no inflation, when there is deflation or when there is no inflation, what it means is, let's say there is deflation. That means the overall prices of goods and services are decreasing. So let's say today price of bread is 20 rupees, tomorrow the price will be 15 rupees. If the deflation continues, after a few days the price will be 10 rupees. So after a point of time, initially you used to buy one bread for 20 rupees. Now for the same 20 rupees you're going to get two breads. So what you're going to do, you're basically, if you know that the prices are going to go down, you will save money. You will keep the money with yourself. You will not spend it, or you will not put it in bank. So what people do in this case is hoarding of money. Hoarding is stockpiling basically. So people will hoard money. They'll keep the future prospects in mind. So they will think that today I'm going to buy just one bread with 20. Why not just keep this money with me, keep these notes with me, so that in future I can be able to buy two breads, because the prices of goods and services are going down. So in this case, hoarding of money happens, which is not good. Why it is not good is, when hoarding of money happens, nobody will put their money in bank. Like nobody will do fixed deposits, because instead of putting in bank, if they have that money with themselves, they feel in future they can purchase more and more goods. So there is no point of putting deposit in bank, because interest rate, you will not get that much of interest. Let's say bank will offer 10% interest, but here your money is getting, with that same money you are able to buy double the amount of goods. So you better keep it with yourself, that money, rather than giving it to bank for 10% interest. So people will not lend money. So what I mean is no lending. When no lending happens, banks will not have money. When there is hoarding of money, there will be no savings. No savings in institutions, no savings in banks. So banks will not have money. When there is no money with banks, banks cannot lend to other people. Banks cannot lend to companies. Banks cannot lend to new establishments. So no lending happens. When there is no lending happening, no companies will form, because companies require capital. Companies will take loan, they will build, and once they get profits, they'll pay back the money to bank. But now you cannot form new companies because you don't have loans. Why you don't have loan? Nobody's saving in bank. So bank is not having money to give you loan, and you're not able to take loan to establish one building and hire some people and run a company. So when there is no lending, there are no new companies formed. When there are no new companies formed, there will be increase in unemployment. So more and more people are coming, but they are not able to find jobs because they are not able to have enough jobs. The companies are not growing. There are no new companies forming because there is no lending activity happening in banks. So all these are negative points. So one thing you have to remember is, when there is deflation or when there is no inflation, people will hoard money, and that will gives rise to unemployment, increasing unemployment. This is also explained by a famous curve called Phillips curve. I'll just draw it here for you. In this Phillips curve, we'll have unemployment on x-axis, unemployment rate, and on y-axis we will have inflation. So if inflation is too low or inflation is negative, what happens is, let's say here we have 0% inflation and inflation is going, and here inflation is negative, that is deflation. Here we have like 100%. So like this, if you think, what happens is the curve will be something like this. So when there is deflation or there is negative inflation, the unemployment rate, like if you consider this point, so what's happening at this point is negative inflation. If you just see, and very high unemployment. So at this point we can see when there is very low inflation or when there is negative inflation, the unemployment rate is very high. This is the unemployment rate, and this is the inflation. When the inflation is too low, the unemployment will be high. But as and when the inflation keeps on growing, we will keep shifting here. So when the inflation is here, we'll have less unemployment rate. When inflation is too high, we will have less unemployment rate. So this is the Phillips curve. This curve is famously called Phillips curve. So what this indicates is, it indicates the relationship between inflation and unemployment. So when we talk about deflation and when we talk about no inflation, the unemployment increases. Okay, now we will go into the next case. So before going to the next case, one more thing is, when there is no unemployment, we can also say that there is no economic growth happening in the country, because there are no new companies formed, no new jobs formed, no capital formation is there, no lending is there, because people are not saving. So economic growth is low. Now we will go into next case. So to avoid all these circumstances, to avoid hoarding of money, we need to have some inflation. We need to have some overall rise in prices of goods and services. When there is some overall rise in goods and services, people will not keep money in their pockets. What people will do, let's say that money is, let's say now prices of breads are increasing at small amount, like 20 rupees bread is going to cost you 22 rupees tomorrow. But what if that 20 rupees, if I put in my bank and my like, let's say, I'll give you a proper example now in this year 2021, the bread is costing 20 rupees. In next year the bread will cost you 22 rupees, and let's say that 20 rupees if you put in bank, in next year the bank will give you 25 rupees. So in this case, what you will do, you will go and put this 20 rupees in bank, and next year with the same 20 that 20 rupees will become 25 rupees. You will get that 25 rupees and take one bread, and you will have 3 rupees profit. So in this case, what's happening is, people are willing to put money in their banks. People will not keep money in their pockets. Like in case 1, what we have seen is, people were putting money in their pockets. People were not saving because they did not have enough incentive to save. Now when they are putting money in their banks, they are getting good interest rates. Then they are getting good interest rates, they feel it is better to put money in banks, that is more profitable. So people will start saving in banks. So what happens is, savings in banks increases. When savings in banks increases, lending activity increases in the economy. When lending activity increases, there is capital formation happening. That is, companies are expanding, new companies are forming. So all these are good for economy. Capital formation are increasing, and this means economic growth is happening. So any growing company, any growing country will want inflation to be at least a little bit low. Inflation is very much desirable for any growing country, any developing country which needs economic growth. Low inflation is desirable. And one more thing, when there are new companies, new capital formation, new expansion is there, when there will be new jobs formed, because new companies will create new jobs. When new jobs are created, unemployment decreases. We have already seen this in Phillips curve. When there is some inflation, the unemployment rate comes down. As we go up, the unemployment rate comes down. So when there is a little bit of inflation, unemployment rate decreases and economic growth also improves. These are two main important things that we need to know. Economic growth increases and unemployment decreases when there is some amount of inflation. But if the inflation is too high, if the prices are increasing rapidly, what happens is people will start hoarding goods out of fear. Initially, when there is no inflation, people used to hoard money. People used to keep money in their pockets. Now, when there is too much of inflation, people will start hoarding goods now. Let's say hypothetical example, if 1 liter petrol costs you 100 rupees today, after 1 year if it's going to cost you 200 rupees, what you will do is, if you need only 1 liter, even if you need 1 liter of petrol today, you will buy 2 liters of petrol. That is basically you are buying for future also. You'll just buy and keep it with yourself, so that you can use it in future, because anyway in future the rates are going to increase and you have to spend more for the same amount of good which you don't want. So you know that when there is high inflation in economy, you cannot purchase goods later. That will be more costly. What you will do, you'll basically purchase it now itself and hoard it, keep it in your home, so that you can use it in the future. Same happens with every other goods. When there is too much of inflation, people will start hoarding goods, and in this case there is no point of putting money in banks. So let's say bank will give you 10% interest. Now if you put that 100 rupees in banks will give you only 110 rupees after 1 year, and you cannot do anything with 110 rupees. The prices of petrol is already gone to 200 rupees. So now you can only buy around half liter of petrol with that 110 rupees. So there is no point of putting money in bank. So what you will do is, you'll keep on hoarding goods, and this is bad for economy, because there will be a shortage of goods. People will suffer a lot. People will not get food to eat. People will not there will be inequality that will be formed due to this. How it happens is, see, many salaried workers, salaries, wages are linked to inflation. So salaried workers, as the inflation is high, salary workers will get higher salaries, because their salaries are linked to inflation. If inflation is high, their salaries will increase. So inflation increases salaries or wages. Salaries or wages increases. That means whoever is working in companies, whoever is having jobs in organized sector, are going to get good increase in salary. But whoever is living on fixed income, like poor people who generally lived on fixed income, their salaries will not increase. So only one set of people are able to go through this. The other set of people are suffering in this case. So clearly there is some inequality that is developing in this case. So this is again bad, and this is due to high inflation. When there is too much of inflation, some people will be better off than other people, because some peoples are employed who have salaries, wages linked to inflation rate. So as the inflation rate is too high, their salaries will also become too high, and they can just go through that phase. But some people whose salaries, or who do not earn salaries or wages, who depend on fixed incomes, their money will not be more valuable. Like if somebody is earning 10,000 today, And if he's going to keep on, he will keep on earning 10,000 tomorrow also. There's no point, because with the 10,000, whatever he can buy today, he can only buy half of the goods in the next year. So that is bad. That will create inequality. So these are two main things that will happen due to high inflation. So too much of inflation is also bad. No inflation or deflation is also bad. So what we need to have is low inflation. We need to have some inflation, but we need to keep it at low. Okay. Okay. So what is high and what is low, and how do we see actually? So generally for our country, we believe that around 2 to 4% is low inflation, and we need to keep inflation in this range. If it is more than 4% inflation, or let's say more than 10%, is too bad for any country. And if there is deflation also, it is too bad for any country. So we have to keep inflation 2 to 4%. If 2 to 4% inflation is there, it's good for us. It's good for Indian economy. It's good for everybody, because more and more jobs are created in Indian economy. But if the inflation goes too high, then it will be problematic. Prices will increase and people will suffer. So now